Alina has been to every single one of these. I missed 2. Al's probably been to the most next, but I think Rick's missed 1 or 2. Mike's missed a bunch. Alina's never missed this. So thank you so much. Really appreciate all your work. And then, okay, what else? I can't even read the next agenda item. I really should put my glasses on. We're gonna talk about training for a second. I'm gonna introduce Paula, who has a quick announcement about a training opportunity that she's gonna tell you about.
Thank you, Lisa Marie. Hi, my name is Paula, and I'm with Hayward Networks, and I'd just like to make a quick announcement that I'm looking for an OpenStack instructor for Carnegie Mellon. The class is at night from May 11th through the 14th, so it's a part-time job. It's paid market rate, so the course is already written. All you have to do is just learn the material, 2 weeks in advance. So we're looking for people right now. Let me know if you're interested. I left a couple of my business cards on the table, and just send me an email or call me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, so we are doing this as a Google Hangout. So hello, world. Hi, everybody. Should flip the camera out. Show everybody. A lot of people here. Really, really, really great to see everybody here. Last announcement I'll make is my little book that I published. I actually updated it for Kilo. So we're gonna have the next version out by the OpenStack Summit. So that's exciting. It's really good for our beginner track because it's sort of like an OpenStack for dummies. So it was a lot of work. And so I'm just really happy it's gonna be out in version 2. So it's a free download off HP Press. So I will tell you about that when it goes live. But and I should bring down the old ones and give them away, I guess, because that will be relevant in about a couple months. But anyway, really excited that'll be out by the OpenStack Summit. So it'll be another book that will support these meetups. Okay, Morgan, one of my favorite people in OpenStack, one of your favorite people in OpenStack. It's so nice to have so many PTLs in the house. Oh my gosh, they're like coming out of the woodwork. Like there's so many PTLs over here, I can't even hack. So also Mike Perez, as you guys all know, PTL Cinder. So if you have Cinder questions and you want to talk Cinder afterwards, Mike is here. Morgan, PTL of Keystone, and other Keystone expertise in the house. And then just all around goodness. I'm Dave, an expert in graffiti analysis and glance, and you can certainly talk to that. Josh Anderson is here all the way from Seattle. Josh knows everything about open source and has been in the Stacker community for a very long time. Very nice to have Josh Anderson here all the way down from Seattle with his Bow Sox hat on. Oh, yeah. We didn't need that here. We really don't need that here. Anyway.
I had some San Francisco Giants conversations last night with his son. So.
Yeah, Giants fans can handle the Sox, but I'm an A's fan, so we get along. But anyway, all right, so Morgan is going to entertain you about Keystone. Remember, ask him all the really hard questions. Yeah, it should be working.
Can you hear me, everyone? Yeah.
And for the Google Hangout people, Morgan painstakingly put all of his slides in red and black background for you. So you can thank him later, because he was very mad at me when I made him do that last night instead of having more beers and whiskey.
No, I did that today.
Oh, okay.
I spent an hour staring off into space instead of just getting meeting. I should have stated it. Well, anyway, I'm Morgan, PTL Keystone. I'm always on IRC. Find me there. Come to OpenStack Keystone. Hang out, chat about it, ask questions. Don't ask questions. But today we're going to cover some basics about getting your identity, whatever that means, into OpenStack, into the cloud. And I'm trying to break it up into three separate groupings: real basics, a little bit more advanced, and then some really advanced stuff when it comes to federated identity. That's real complex, real fast. So let's start with the basics. Well, what are the concepts when you're talking about identity and dealing with that with an OpenStack? Well, you have authentication, and authorization. What are they? Who I am, and what I'm allowed to do. As a point of InfoSec, Taylor Swift wants to remind you don't share your passwords. Because that's not how you share data. And if there are any questions, please don't hesitate to ask at any time. Hold them to the end, ask right away. So in Keystone, when you're using your credentials, you basically do something like this. You tell the client you want to authenticate. Client tells Keystone, here's my request to authenticate. Keystone gives you to take the token back, and you can extract the data from it right away. There's a lot of stuff that happens on the back end. user exists? Is the user enabled? Is the scope as a project or a domain enabled, existing? Does the user have a role on it? And then finally, it creates a token, hands off this blob of JSON that many of you have probably seen. Really hate, especially if you're not ready to have to store that in the database. When it comes to authorization, it's a little bit specifically on how we get the roles and what's being done here, how you act with another service. For example, in this case, would be Nova. Well, you already have your token, so you make your request to the client requests to the service, and then the service middleware catches the request and goes, oh, I see a token here. It's usually the XAuth token header, or it's on the, it's as part of the, no, it's all that XAuth. And when middleware calls to Keystone, it checks to see if it can do the validate. It gets its own token, makes sure if it doesn't need that, then it validates the user token, takes the response from Keystone, breaks it apart into a whole bunch of headers, the scope, user ID, username, domain, all sorts of interesting data, and hands it off to Nova. Nova then goes, it's my job to enforce policy on this. I will check to see what my policy JSON file, which is a set of rules, is allows them to act on, and it'll perform the action, tell you you're not allowed to, tell you you are allowed to, but the action is impossible. And finally, hand back to the client response, and then the client tells the user, hey, this is what happened. Yes?
You said that the user has a token in Keystone.
Yes.
Gives a token to the user.
Keystone does give the question was, does Keystone give a token to the user? This would be when you authenticate. You usually authenticate prior to acting on a service. Sometimes it happens all in line. You use Nova client. You have your environment. The token lives in the client itself, or can be passed as a header, environmental variable to any number of clients that you previously authenticated, or it can be passed on the command line to some clients. There's many ways of getting a token that you previously got into a environment.
Keystone that is token.
Oh, Keystone has a list of tokens. I'll go over the specific different types of tokens and how they're validated a little bit later on here. Yes. The service token, validating the token is a privileged event because there's data in a token you may not want to use to the world. Tokens, depending upon the version you're using, may or may not have data that is sensitive. So we require it to be an authenticated request. So the service has its own user, its own account that allows it to do authentication and validation. And as you can see, the middleware just acts with the data between the service and Keystone, meaning that since the Keystone team writes both the middleware and Keystone, it allows us to do all sorts of stuff like we change how Keystone works. It's easy for us to affect all services and make it seamless, no matter if you're deploying it or somebody else is deploying it. And you don't have to go to the Nova team, Lance team, and Cindy team, and press Mike over here and go, please Mike, where's my code? A lot of it is all done in middleware so that we can manage that and the upgrade process.
So on the user, you have service and user, and we found Nova and
Yeah.
user, right?
Yes.
So here the service, what about the service? And the service account, or is it?
The service account, you're talking about the service account for Nova or the service account for Neutron. And that's specifically what we use to do validation in most cases. There are exceptions to that rule, but the exception, as with everything, there's exceptions mile long, and each one of them gets crazier. There are two ways middleware works. Middleware will either, when it comes to passing no token in for a request, or an invalid, expired token, revoked token, any reason why it's tampered with so it's not valid, doesn't exist token, made up. It will either reject immediately, tell you 403, you're not allowed because you didn't give me a token, or you'll put a header in saying that this is a valid token or not, meaning that you can have, in the case of something like Swift, you can actually say, I don't need a token to access these things, these specific APIs, these specific buckets, whatever. It allows you a lot of flexibility in that front. Most services require a token for everything. So being the exception, a few other of the newer services also look at the header instead. And I don't know which headers off the top of my head, but I'll be happy to look at it. Yes.
Keystone middleware, other Keystone.
Keystone middleware runs in the process space of Nova, Lance, Neutron. It is a separate package, and so you don't have to pull in all the dependencies of Keystone itself. All Keystone middleware needs to know is how to talk to Keystone and where to talk to Keystone. So it's to limit the amount of dependencies. Keystone has a ton of dependencies. There's no reason Nova needs LDAP dependencies.
Keystone only talks to Keystone.
Nova, when you as a user, when you take action on Nova, you don't. Middleware will be the way that Nova validates that you are authenticated, you are who you say you are, and the authorization to perform the action. So, on to, as I said, token types and how they validate what they mean. We have a few types. The first type is UUID tokens. If you run DevStack, you've seen them. You can see the example here. Most token types use persistent storage. When you say validate the token used for persistent storage, Keystone will look up the token in its database, memcache, whatever it stores it in, and pull the data out and make sure that it is not revoked, make sure that it is, in fact, hasn't been tampered with in certain cases, making sure the token is really a valid token. UUID is, of course, the simplest. It's the first one we had. It is always a live validation. You always ask Keystone if it's a valid token. The second one is PKI. PKI has some downsides. It also has some wins. PKI was designed specifically so the endpoint can do validation without talking directly to Keystone. Middleware can do all the validation. Unfortunately, they're extremely large and very unfriendly, passing between 1 and 40 kilobytes of data on a header in HTTP on the HTTP protocol has a number of issues. Notably that over 4 kilobytes, we tend to break the internet. Nobody wants that. And this requires PKI infrastructure and all the headaches of certificate replication lists and everything else. Well, we know PKI tokens are giant. So we said, well, let's Z-level press ASN1 allows this. Well, as you can see here, PKI tokens really are a giant block of data because we put everything in there, including the catalog. PKI-Z tokens can actually be not a whole lot smaller. That's actually compressed. So let's move on to the newest token type, Fernet. Fernet is using the Fernet standard. This was done for Heroku. It's specifically designed to be lightweight and work with APIs. Usually it's short, and the biggest win solves the persistent database backup. You don't have an unbounded set of data that gets shoved into some data store that you have to clean up later, or deal with slab size issues like you might deal with Netcache. And this is basically what we do to grab the token itself. Fernet is an open standard. Spec is linked here, and you can look to Keystone codebase if you want to get a little more. It does require symmetric keys. It does require rotation of keys. It's a lot more work than UUID tokens, but it's also a lot less work than PKI. It's a good set of compromises. A little longer token, a lot more user-friendly, a lot more employer-friendly. We also have the ability to use SAML tokens. SAML tokens are used for federation between Keystone installs. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about this because that's a topic that needs probably 2 meetup sessions on its own. But SAML is standard. It's XML based, it's cryptologically secure, and has a whole bunch of stuff around it. It's how we talk, how we allow federation of identity between Keystone servers. And I'm happy to come back at some other time to specifically cover that the SAML and Keystone federation. Or I'm sure long, we can have to talk about it. Yeah, that's right. That's fine. So, more importantly, I'm sorry, I must have been off in the world of writing it here. I swear it was anyway, what's actually in the token? There's some important things. The creation time, the expiry time, control data about the user, the authorization information, And unfortunately, the service catalog, which is why PKI tokens get kind of launched. But this is what we have. This is what we need to be able to authorize a user. We need to know all this stuff. It tells us whether the token valid and everything about what a service needs to know to check to see if the user is allowed to do something. So we're going to move on beyond the basics now to something that kind of vaguely resembles a real world, maybe.
Keystone create a perpetual token, like no expiration.
We don't support that right now because tokens are bearer tokens, meaning I actually get a hold of your token, I can do anything that you can do. You should always encrypt your data, SSL terminate the endpoints themselves so that you don't have to worry about that as much. But still, tokens are secure. They are privileged data. They convey your authorization. So they have to expire at some point just for security percent.
So if I have a long-running application, and so if you added the application to re-authenticate, given the new token.
You can either re-authenticate, get a new token because get a new token. Anytime you run out, just get a new token. Which means you have to either have the username and password, or in the future, we will support X509 client cert off. So you'll be able to say, use this service key. It closes some of the gaps, but again, you still have error token issues, so we do need them to expire. If you need to do long-running delegation, so nobody needs to act on your behalf to Lance or to Cinder. I'm just picking on you because you're there. You'll use something called a trust, and that's another topic that I can talk. That we could probably fill up 40 minutes of how they work and all the variations of anything you can possibly do with it. I can see it. He knows it's true.
Well, I got a quick question. So
Yes.
is there a messaging backplane that's integral to Keystone, or are you using something else or another project? What are the tokens being passed across?
HTTP.
Mark, can you repeat the question?
Oh yeah, tokens being, what are the tokens being what's the transit of the tokens between the middleware and Keystone? All HTTP, just like if you, the user, were talking it, all Express.
Okay.
We do emit some notifications of events that an auth happened, etc. as audit. So Celiometer or Nasca or anybody else can pick it up and see what happened. But we don't use the bus to transmit tokens.
That's exactly what I was wondering. Yeah.
So, yes. Two. This one?
So then for that token, what kind of information from this?
Okay.
What kind of information is it?
Well, Fernet encodes certain information in the ID itself. So the way that the ID, like the PKI token, contains the entire token, Fernet contains just the information that it needs to reconstruct the token on validate. So it has create time. The cool thing is, creation time is actually part of the Fernet spec. So it's got creation time, and then it has an AES encrypted payload. That payload will contain the expiration time, audit ID, user ID, scope, and a couple other things that I have to go look to be 100% sure. But it's enough. It's just the minimum data to reconstruct, validate, and he actually goes through its database and identity stores to rebuild the token every time. It sounds like it's a lot of overhead. It's actually maybe 5% worse than UUID. And you never have to store a token in the database, which I'm sure everybody's going to be cheering from the top of the ramparts once they finally get there. Yes.
Would you consider that list here as the token header?
That's the actual content of the token body.
What is the header?
The header is the token ID. So in UUID token, it's the 32-byte identifier for the token itself.
That's the only thing in the header is the.
It's just the ID. The header doesn't control contain the ID. Yes. All tokens, in UUID tokens, Keystone validates the token and stored in the database. Keystone is the only service that has access to tokens. The question was, is there a way to prevent corruption of the token? PKI token is ASN1 encoded and signed. Fernet is HMAC SHA-256 HMAX signature, I believe, with an AES payload, that actually is 2 keys. And the SAML2 is, again, signed every step of the way. So you have lots and lots of signatures to validate this. You ensure the data has not been changed out. We do test that. Yes? The man in the middle attack? Well, since they are error tokens, the answer is going to be terminate, do SSL termination on the endpoints themselves. It's the simplest way to prevent man in the middle attacks is to properly use TLS-based, whatever the latest one that doesn't have a security problem with it. Can't keep track of these. This seems to be added. I would recommend, well, whatever SSL. Keystone is recommended and actually in the future needs to be deployed under mod NISB in Apache. So Apache would terminate SSL or HA proxy or whatever Nginx or whatever you want to use it. But you should terminate Keystone. You should have Keystone terminate with SSL. So you never have exposed data. So where are we? Okay, so we have, yes?
I have a question.
Sure.
Since the format uses like AES for symmetric encryption, does it contain like USAP key?
I'm sorry, I missed the second part of that question.
Okay. Like since the format uses symmetric key encryption, so does it like need a new additional step to exchange key in the
Keystone is the only service that actually uses the keys. What happens when you hand Ethernet tokens to the middleware, much like you do with ID tokens, Keystone middleware asks Keystone validate the token. So Keystone issues the token and validates the token. So you never actually, so nobody besides Keystone ever needs the keys. And if you've got a cluster of Keystone servers, you don't need to exchange keys between them. Usually you use Puppet or Chef to replicate them between the cluster.
I mean since it uses like AES for encryption, so does the like client or middleware need the key?
The client or middleware does not need the key because the AES encryption decryption is done inside Keystone's process space. It's never actually done on the endpoints themselves. So actually the endpoint can't know anything about the data in the Ethernet token. All it can do is ask Keystone what's in this token. So trust it has to trust Keystone. So look back where we were here. We have the identity store. What is your identity store? Well, the basic install is SQL. You have this really basic identity store. It doesn't have any of the cool features like password complexity enforcement or password rotation policies or failure attempt lockouts or any of those cool features that you'd expect from the place you want to save users and passwords. So what do we do about that? Well, let's just use LDAP and SQL. It's pretty cool. Any of the domains, and domain is a construct in Keystone that allows you to contain other resources. User resource, groups resource, projects or resources, etc. A domain can be configured to use a different identity store. So you have SQL, you have domains in SQL, but this one domain, I want to use LDAP for. I want to pull my users out of my corporate Active Directory deployment. Sounds like a good idea. It also means that your actual users can live in Active Directory and your service users can go into the SQL store, be local, and you never have to worry about, oops, my Active Directory went down. That never happens. And then, but now the other thing is that any domain and every domain can use a different LDAP backend or even a subtree. It's the only caveat is that if a user, because you have a subtree, you have one tree and here's the user, and then whatever search is another domain, come up with the exact same user object. There are different user IDs that are in different domains. Each domain is considered isolated. Doesn't matter if they come from the same LDAP backend. If they have a configuration, they will be treated as though they are an island isolated from all the other domains. The cool thing is the default domain can also be overwritten. This means you're migrating from an old deployment, or you've got users that are using V2 Keystone API. My recommendation, don't use that. But V3, please. They can still offer V2. But the V2 is just because the default domain where the V3 compatible place where V2 users live can be overwritten, just like any other domain. So, oh yes. Right.
So domain can be backed by both SQL and LDAP, or
A domain can be backed by one identity store, but you can have a default. So any domain that does not have a specific config is in the generic SQL store.
so how does that approach? But I found is that anytime customers want to store at least one user in MySQL, it is not reaching. So how do I handle that?
So, well, you can give them a second domain, or because authorization can happen across domains. There's nothing saying that you must to work on your domain here. Everything must live in that domain. Oh no, service users can live over there and they can act on whatever you want. So it allows you to do exactly what you said: store one user, store one user in SQL here, and a bunch of users in LDAP here. You can even go crazy and write your own driver. You support the loading your own driver, but that becomes a much bigger headache. Yes.
So Keystone is use a template as a store.
Use which one?
Template.
I'm not familiar with that one. I don't know. We typically use SQL or LDAP, or anything talks in LDAP protocol. Version 2, version 3. I don't know what the current version of it is. Whatever the current version of LDAP is, it's not really hard to write your own driver to talk to whatever your identity store is. But unless I'm familiar with it, I can't authoritatively say that it talks LDAP or SQL or something. So, there's a problem. We cannot trust your identity store to not, if you've got multiple identity stores or multiple trees, you can't trust your identity store to give me unique data. I don't want to let Nathan's identity store and Mike's identity store end up with the same user, LDAP. That's probably not that hard to do. You just chop little pieces off to create an ID like CN equals user and leaving the rest of the DN out. So how do we solve that? Well, we have an internal ID mapping engine. This does it for both users and groups. The idea is that we take the domain ID, something Keystone controls, and the user ID, something that the identity store controls, and we mix them together. Take the SHA-256 hash of it, and now we have a unique ID, and really if that collides, because we've taken really random data and maybe random data and put it together, I'd be really surprised. But we do conflict resolution there as well. With error, and we'll talk about. But I was surprised to be able to the same user coming out of the state, the identity store and the state tokens. Indeed. So, as I said, I pretended this was a play, so no other book. Sorry.
Everybody in OpenStack in the theater.
No. No, there's just a few of us, and we all have to be in the same team. That's weird. I'll go over a very basic workflow of federated identity. Again, I'm not going to go too much in detail here. This is a topic that we could spend an entire summit, not just a session, like a whole week, talking about how to work it and all the cool things you can do with it, and coming with ideas on what's broken. But when you do federated identity, and this will look very familiar if you work with SAML2 or OpenID Connect or any of the cool SSO technologies. So the user talks to his agent, browser, client, whatever, which then talks to Keystone. Keystone goes, whoa, I can't figure out how to talk to you. I don't know what to do with this. So I'm going to redirect you over to the guy who actually can authoritatively say who you are. This is your ADFS, your identity provider, which a service will pass the login form straight back to the user. Keystone never sees the login form. User's agent will pass that back to the user. And then the user will then say, hey, here are my credentials. Again, this goes just to the agent user. The user agent in your browser or client will then talk straight to your identity provider. This means that Keystone never sees your credentials. It's actually pretty cool, especially for people who are in Active Directory and learn security things, they get less skin in the game. And then Active Directory, in this case, the ADFS system, will validate that credentials are correct and hand back a sample to assertion. That's that big blob of XML, all cryptologically signed every step of the way to make sure that you know you're talking to the right people. Keystone will validate the sample to assertion does map, in fact, to a valid user, valid group, valid project scope, has authorizations, do all the normal work for authentication, for authorization mapping we talked about earlier, and then issue a token. The one thing today is that authorization only exists to groups because users don't actually ever exist in Keystone. The users are ephemeral. I don't know who your users are. You don't know. All I know is that this user maps into a group in Keystone, and everybody in that group has access. It's done via a mapping rule engine. Again, I'm going to kind of gloss over that here because there are a really in-depth process and it's getting to its own declared language on all the different things. Yes?
So how did you know that send them to coming back from the
Oops. Hold on. Just trying to get you. Say again?
How did you know that? How did people know that? First share that you required.
Yeah.
And then send it coming back.
That's the sample assertion has a whole bunch of control data in it saying I give this provider. When Keystone redirects, it provides in the redirect some unique identifiers to say, oh yeah, I'm the service provider. It's all about, to know that Keystone to map that SAML assertion. Keystone has a lot of logic, and it's built into the SAML 2 stack, which is and OpenID Connect, all those WebSSO technologies, specifically so that anybody can create a service provider, or how to write an identity provider and issue these assertions. Anybody can create an identity provider. It's what makes Facebook Connect and the Google login, Ubuntu One, every other possible world, OpenStack ID. All of those all work the same way. Make an application, talk these things, and you pick probably one off. So, final thoughts on this. Identity providers are really, really, really flexible. Anything can be an identity provider. Even your application that lives on top of your cloud. If it can talk OpenID, you could secure something in Swift, and your app will issue a sample assertion. Keystone can validate that. They can talk Keystone to Swift. There's lots of options here. Just think about what you can do with anything in an identity provider. In Juno, we support SAML 2, Kilo and beyond, OpenID Connect, and it's really, really easy to add other types of SSO technologies, especially if the Apache module work already exists, because we leverage Apache extensively to extract the data. So that's all I have right here. So, questions? Or moving on to drinking more beer.
I'm not around the mic for questions. I think you guys are shy as well, but okay, I'll hang on.
Whose responsibility? What component is responsible?
This really helps also with Mike for the hangout, so not sure.
There is a PAP and PEP and PDP and PIP.
Those are a lot of acronyms, a lot of initialisms, and I couldn't, without the context, some of those might be meaningful, some might not be.
Policy information point,
Okay.
policy administration point, policy decision point, and policy enforcement point.
We tend to for the policy, for all of the different types of policy something points, we tend to collapse them all into either Keystone or what we call the Oslo policy rules engine. Yeah, Oslo is the common libraries for OpenStack. So we have a wrapper for providing configurations, there's all system logging, a few other things. Just make it so it's easy to say, I look at Cinder, I look at Keystone, and the options make sense. They're all the same. The defaults are saying that type of stuff. We have what we call Oslo policy. Oslo policy is a Python library that is a rules engine. It's declarative. It allows us to manage the policy enforcement points and do the policy enforcement points and do the action enforce on the content. A lot of these things are kind of collapsed within OpenStack. We don't have distinct policy information points versus policy decision points. It depends more upon what service you're talking about. You're going to the middleware. Is the middleware rejecting the token you're requesting because you don't have a token, or is it put on the application to do the enforcement itself, or did it pass pass through a valid token? You can already pass that point, and then have another policy enforcement point down the line. It's mix and match at the moment. Long term, we'll clear that up and we'll make it a little bit more defined. But right now, I think the lines are a little bit blurred on all those different things.
Get the alpha PTL here.
No, it's not done.
Oh,
He stepped down.
Oh, man. Being a PTL is really hard work, by the way. If you're wondering why people don't last all that long in this position, it's actually a treat that we have somebody in this area because, anyway, enjoy them while they're here. It's a lot of work. So let's do one cycle. All right, Josh.
Thanks, Lisa. So another stupid, basic interdependence question, Morgan. So how does the relationship between latency metric, say, published to accelerometer, I'm assuming, work, and how do you monitor latency? Everything runs through the auth server, everything needs to authenticate. How do you make sure trains run on time across the entire cloud?
Well,
whose responsibility is that?
Really, it's rely on your clock and whatever you're using to manage that. Timeout. The Keystone tokens themselves have fixed windows, and it's on the clients who services they're consuming them to make sure that they're refreshed. And when you talk about like latencies, there's a certain point where you have to say, I think Keystone assumed that a 5-minute clock skew is as narrow as we're going to ever get. And if you say more than 5 minutes is necessary, I will probably roll my eyes and say, that's great, tell me how to do that when you're talking about somebody who's in Europe or Australia and has to work with the deployment team in Canada. It's just get a point where somebody's going to have a problem. Things are going to get out of whack. You have to say, here's our window, here's what we deal with. With regards to how, Kilometer or anybody else would consume at the end, it's really about just making sure that we can respond and not tip over and crash in the workplace.
Other questions? Suppose if they did their homework.
Yeah,
Challenged them to come with the hard questions, they did.
So the question is, I know in German there was a single MySQL backend possible. So talking about not like backend or domain, there was a single. So is that still true in Kiva, and is it possible to connect to LDAP against different domains?
Okay, so I'll address the SQL question first. You can right now only have one SQL backend. That's because the Oslo DB wrapper and the way we're consuming the Oslo DB wrapper, I'm not sure if it's this in Oslo DB or not. The way we're consuming, you can only have one SQL connection across your application. You may have a pool of connections, and you can have failover on your MySQL side. You can't say that SQL server and that one over there, different credentials, different, just not how we have things architected. So we do the same thing and say, you can have one of these. So make it the default driver and override the default domain. And just saves you the headache of, well, LDAP can only handle one domain. It's because we didn't want to have to try and implement some like hierarchical, we don't want to represent relational data in hierarchical. Just it starts looking real standard. When it comes to LDAP, you can have every domain can have a per domain phase. Each domain can have one backend. So if you need 15 backends, you need 15 domains. But you can have as many LDAP domains as you want. You can talk to as many different LDAP servers as you want.
Okay, I'll first in a second.
And there's also one.
Wait.
There's also
The Keystone Manager can do some of the things that we are asking. And how do you get into the Keystone Manager?
So Keystone Manage is usually utility functions that are not meant to be used from a REST API. Example, migrating a database. Keystone needs to be turned off.
How do you use it?
As command line tool, it's installed with Keystone. So you would just use that, Keystone dash manage and then options and cards. It looks a lot like a client, but it usually tracks directly to the database, directly to SQL, sometimes directly on the file system. It's designed in a way to be used as strict administrator. And it's a step. This would be like when you're starting up MySQL and you want to change the my.cnf. It's like that level of administrative. It's part of the core service and directly touches things that the REST API can never do. And it's by design. So there's no way you can accidentally give somebody a keys capable to go migrate your database out from public break or drop data out of the database. Not that you should ever migrate down. And then there was also a question for the back.
So we're providing a networking backend, and we inherit the project's networking constructs. It'd be nice to have visibility into, for example, the project names, descriptions, those information. Unfortunately, those things are not passed from Keystone to Linux or Genova. Is this the best way to write a Keystone client?
So what do you need? What are you trying to solve with that information? And the names and then the descriptions, distinctly. What are you trying to solve?
Try to give user unified references. You are just hard to consume.
So if you are looking up, if you need to look up and do the D reference, like you're saying, give me the friendly name. That's usually not done that often. Neutron is not going to have to do that in most cases. In most cases, Neutron doesn't ever have to tell the user anything besides, yes, let's create this work. No, this didn't. So when you need to do the dereference, you talk to Keystone directly to figure out the mappings. You should be, and this is a policy question of whether you're allowed to or not, but you should be able to say project information, get project information, and you can't because of the work that we can do to mitigate that policy.
Horizon.
Yeah, but Horizon does it too. So the idea is that Horizon has special powers in magic. It's genuine. Don't tell people how it's but the idea is you should dereference only when you have to talk to the user, when you have to deal with the input to the user or providing the information or providing information to the user. So use the IDs and where that matters, and then talk to Keystone on the limited cases you actually have to map that information.
So I have two regions, one in New York, one in San Francisco. I want to authenticate the San Francisco Keystone and use a VM in New York. How do I set up Keystone for that?
That's where you use Keystone Federation. That's a topic that I really don't have to cover reasonably in a short answer. There's a lot of documentation. If you look at, we will publish the slides. I'm not sure where people will publish them. We'll get these published out. I'm sure we'll find someplace to look.
Probably on the meetup page.
Yeah, we'll find a way of getting these slides out. But there's a link specifically to docs on Keystone Federation. It's on docs.openstack.org. It's part of the Keystone docs themselves. They'll tell you how to set up both Keystone as a service provider and as an identity provider across the living provider.
I have read that action item. Bring me some homework. You haven't had to work tonight. You're in charge of publishing Morgan's slide somewhere and posting it somewhere into the meetup site. All right. Well. Gosh. All right. If there's no more questions, then I'm going to go back to Al. No? You do have one? Jonathan, we'll come back to you. Is there really a question, or you missed talking about it? Everybody is a Sean Roberts. He is my co-host, co-organizer of this great fun thing we do every other week. And somebody can hear yourself.
I didn't even write that. So, what do you think about using something like Congress to set essentially access control on other domains that normally Keystone doesn't have access to?
That's a tough question. Mostly because every time I've looked at Congress up until very recently, I've had a different answer from what they were trying to accomplish, and that's because they've been progressing in their mission statement as well. It's important for the they came with a very wide mission statement, right? And now they're narrowing down to something that makes sense for them to accomplish. Let's see, since we have overloaded policy. They call policy this over here, they call policy that over there. This is more of a compliance. From what I understand, they're more looking at compliance. Example, you must have X number of these VMs, or you may only have these two things adjacent. A much broader view than what Keystone will ever be able to tell you about the cloud. I think that's absolutely perfectly fine. And actually, a good idea to have a project that has that view, but it's not that they're going to change how role-based works. They're not going to change details like that. You're not talking about the base authentication authorization. But when you're talking about the purview of, there's a third aspect of identity that I left off in my slide there. It's under what conditions can I perform this action? I don't even know what the hell that's called. Nobody's going to actually be able to put a phrase to that. It's not like authentication or authorization, it's the third thing. So what is that? That's where Congress starts to live. And having projects that can look at things and say, well, maybe I don't do the enforcement, I tell you where you have to put things because I've been looking at this all the whole time. Right? Because if it's doing the hard enforcement, then they become a bottleneck as well. Because now you have to go, hey, Congress, can I do this? Sometimes that might be okay. Sometimes that isn't. That's depending on the point.
That's one of the ways it's called adjudication.
Adjudication? Okay, thank you. I've been asking around and everybody goes, well, something. So thank you.
It's separate from enforcement.
Yes, it is. It's a different question. It is related to enforcement. It's not enforcement itself. Yes.
So one of the ways they're not working on right now, but one of the ways they're looking at probably within the next 2 releases, depending on how priorities get set up in the Senate. They're talking about having essentially Congress clients actually on all the different projects and start to work directly with it so that the declarative language is actually imported into the project. So
as long as
it would become more possible.
As long as and as long as we have security in mind, performance in mind, and limiting bottlenecks, makes a lot of sense. And or make it so you have hook points where anybody can create a tool like Congress. And
yeah,
that would be my choice rather than Congress as a hook is hooked into every project. No, Congress uses a generic way to hook into the projects at these places.
So it is the intention of the project to do exactly that. So it is replaceable.
Yeah,
and it would be not a single point of failure, but it would be able to get pulled out or fail ungracefully and still have policy enforcement.
Yeah, and I think that's absolutely the right kind of place. Again, it doesn't change the role-based enforcement that we're talking about today, where it's a different view that is related, but it doesn't, that can be added on top of what we have today.
Exactly.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So Congress and quota enforcement, is that going to be the same thing? So let's talk about quota enforcement quota.
Quota?
So the Congress is that area.
Yeah, in a way. One of the things that they're working on in a couple different ways. The first is just supporting reporting, which is easiest of the problems. But next is to be reactive. So once you see something that's fallen out of compliance, and go fix it. And then after that, then it gets into declarative or proactive. So
right now,
yeah, so reactive and proactive would be essentially a form of quota, but it would be more sophisticated than just say you can have 20 gigabytes. It would be more like in this zone, you're allowed to have 20 gigabytes if you're part of this group, and if Your name is Jeff. Not today, but it's in the plans. Sorry to take over.
I'm fine. I didn't have to talk.
Anybody else have any questions?
I'll have one. I'll have one.
Oh, sorry.
It's a nice one to come here, because you don't confuse all the people. Especially asking about Congress. You touched on identity service, token service, and catalog service, but you didn't say too much about policy service.
The policy stuff in Keystone is meant to be a centralization of the policy.json files. It's very rough around the edges and not something that is very usable yet, but we're looking at the delivery cycle to start putting that in money. But right now, it's misnamed. It's really a place to store the policy rules for other projects. But it's so rough around the edges, nobody actually uses it.
Going back to the backend drivers.
Sure.
I have SQL here, and LDAP, PAM, and templated.
So the templated is a catalog specific backend. That's how you can write a very simple template, and that gets put as your service catalog. The PAM backend, the PAM backend, is a legacy backend that really never was put together very well. It no longer exists as of Savannah. And then what was the LLS? Okay.
Any other questions?
Any other questions?
All right.
You got it easy. All right.
Thanks.
Thanks, Mark.
Okay, yes, thank you very much. So special. People all the way here from Los Angeles to do this, so
Where does he work? I didn't get the full bio.
where's he work? Oh, he works at Hewlett Packard, of course, but he works upstream. He works completely, obviously, when you're the detail of a project, a major project like Keystone, it is a full-time job. So we're pretty lucky to be able to give people the opportunity to do that. But Mark is actually one of the details that actually spends a ton of time here in this building with our engineers and doing a lot with the HP Helion OpenStack distro as well, and making sure everyone's being involved. All good and very community and happy. So anyway, we put a couple more beers out because we noticed you guys were thirsty tonight. So, but we of course want you to be responsible and drive safely. And what a beautiful sunset we got to witness tonight. I mean, isn't it special to be doing this meetup here right across the street from where OpenStack started, right? I mean, NASA, right, where it all started. So we're pretty, I love watching the sunset over that hangar every day. Sadly, I'm here every day when the sun sets. And then the moon goes up and down. It's a very sad day. They keep me here until 9 and 10 every Thursday. Except that I love hanging out with you guys. And you know I absolutely love this man, Sean Roberts. I give him a really hard time. I give him an even harder time when he's not here. It takes a lot of work to put this on. And Sean was one of the originators of building this community and kept it going for years when he was at Yahoo. We've collaborated very well to bring it here and to keep it going. So he really deserves a lot of credit for building this wonderful community. And I think I'll say nice things about you since I'm always seeing you. And like most of my team is like, massive crushes on Mr. Roberts. I hear about him all day long.
So I wanted to thank Lisa. She's not giving herself enough credit. Putting this on, organizing this, herding cats. It's a lot of work. So yeah.
All over the place.
So all I did tonight is just show up and so that's not that much work. So if you guys could give a round of applause.
Thanks, everyone. So we're not going to do this in 2 weeks. We're going to, actually, we got a really kind of fun field trip for you guys. In 3 weeks, we're going to go to a customer. We're all going to go across the street to Walmart, not to the store of Walmart, but to Walmart Labs. Yeah. This one's on May 7th, the next one. And so I think it's 3 weeks, yeah? Yeah, I think we got it. It was like too many Thursdays in April. So we skipped a week and we're going May 7th to Walmart, and it's going to be really cool. We're going to have a bunch of different folks presenting. We're going to have Rackspace there, Red Hat,
100, HP,
Anaconda.
Anaconda, really? Awesome.
I'll be there.
Yeah, by the way, he's not at Yahoo anymore, he's not at VMware anymore, he's not on the board for representing EMC anymore. He's, I think he's running for someone, actually, I think someone's chasing him. Anyway, he's at Anaconda now, so congratulations on your new job, Mr. Roberts. So 3 weeks from now, we're gonna be at Walmart. It's a longer meetup. I think it starts at 5:30 and goes till like 2 a.m. No, it goes till like 8 something. I know, and it's, you're gonna have to hit the bar before you go. I don't know if you guys remember our little survey we did here a couple weeks ago asking how much you do truly care about the beer, because the Walmart guys are actually a little bit concerned about this. They're like, I don't know, maybe we should have to meet up here, and we offered to host it, but I think it's really going to be fun for you guys to go over to a vendor or to a customer site, to Walmart Labs, but they do have a regulation. They are not allowed to pour beer. Yes.
More pizza.
More pizza. Oh, did you guys finish all the pizza? Wow. You know, it's so hard to guess. That's like the hardest guessing game we do every week. So anyway, 3 weeks from now, Walmart, it's on the meetup.com/OpenStack site. We hope to see you all there. One more question?
Yeah, can we come here first and have a beer?
Absolutely not. I'm gonna be at Walmart starting at like 5. Actually, they're actually like a customer of ours, so I think I'll be there all day in meetings. So I will meet you guys there at 5:30. And we're gonna have a really, really fun, it's kind of a different style of meetup. We're still kind of working out the agenda, but it's 10 years more. Okay.
I'm gonna talk to them before the.
Okay. Yeah, we have a little different style of agenda. So check the meetup site. We'll publish what it's going to be like, but it should be fun. It should be different. And then we'll be back here in probably 2 weeks after that. We have a really, really cool agenda lined up for you in the future. Rick and I are still figuring it out, but a lot of people come up to us. And if you have a topic you want to present, you can come up to us and we'll figure out where we're working into the schedule. But it's so awesome that OpenStack has so much energy and so much interest, and people want to talk to you about it and people want to engage. So I think if you guys want to talk about Keystone, I think Jeff is going to have a little like think tank hack session, something happening over here. I know they're trying to get some blueprints in before the next summit. So Jeff is here. Jeff. And so we can continue the discussion here. And do you have anything else?
Nothing specific, but I'm putting together a condo training, so OpenStack networking. So sometime over the next couple months, maybe right after the summit, we'll have a condo training. It'll be close to the meeting. So yeah. Yep.
Fun. Okay, well, thank you guys. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Alina.